Welcome to the Blades and Bloodlines podcast. I'm Aidan, a 7th generation barber, carrying on my family's legacy in our 3rd generation shop, a fixture in our community since 1978. This podcast is about more than cuts and trims. It's about connecting with people who have incredible stories, fascinating careers, and vital perspectives to share. Every episode encapsulates an authentic barbershop experience, a bastion of free speech, the likes of which you've never seen, and flows into a meaningful conversation, one that might just change how you see the world. So pull up a chair, sharpen your mind, and join the conversation. And remember, soon you won't be able to say anything. So while you have the opportunity to say something, say something.
I grew up in Australia. I was born here.
Yep.
And my parents came from, both of them from Egypt, but at different times. My parents are about 14 and a half years apart. Same with my husband and me. We're 14 and a half years apart in age. And Mum came here and, I don't know how many years after Dad, but they didn't meet in Egypt. They met through my parents' my mum's uncle from Egypt. He was here in Australia. He was friends with my dad. Yeah. And he said, I've got a beautiful niece. Dad had been through a failed marriage. Okay. And where everything is nice, like he's friends with his first, wife that he had, and I've got a beautiful half brother from that marriage, and who's now a minister.
Well, very good.
Anyway, so what happened, when Mum and Dad met, they were from a similar culture. Dad's got a Catholic background, but wasn't really strong in his faith. Okay. Mum was Coptic Christian. Right. And she was the sort of kid that her parents took her to church, but she had that just burning desire as a child to go to church. She said she used to walk herself to church. It was safe enough, an hour walking to church. On Sunday, she would go by herself sometimes when she was really little. I don't know what age, but she said I was quite young and I used to go on my own. Anyway, so when in Australia, she did try to raise us in the Coptic Christian faith. Of course, that was in the 80s. Yep. And the Coptic Christian faith, I think, started more in the 70s, early 70s, I think. I'm not 100% sure. And a ton of people who know about it would say, I know what year, and I'm not that person that knows all those details.
No, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyway, she did raise us in the Coptic Christian faith at the beginning. And what happened though is Dad, being an Italian in Egypt,
interesting,
he didn't like the Arabic culture. And when he moved to Australia, he's like, I'm finished with Egypt. I don't want to have anything to do with Egypt. I didn't enjoy being in Egypt as a European. I was never accepted there. I guess maybe with Islam is the main faith there. Christians are the outsiders, and Europeans were the outsiders. And
was your dad in his heart more Italian, like in his mindset, or was it just not identity? Just wasn't.
How many generations I saw pictures of my Italian family that lived in Egypt. He had, I think his grandparents were already in Egypt. Okay,
so they were there for a few generations.
Yes.
Kind of like the Greek Egyptian community as well.
Correct.
They're there, and Armenians too, I suppose. They're just there for generations anyway. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, so how did that influence his identity then?
So he was Egyptian culturally.
Okay, culturally Egyptian, yeah.
Yeah, the main language I spoke together was French, not Italian.
Interesting, okay.
He's strong with his French. Yeah. He does speak some Italian. But then now coming to Australia and then many years later meeting my mum, getting married. She came from Egypt. They got married here. He decided to he said to my mum, I want you to learn to speak English really well. And she speaks English really well now. She's got a bit of an accent, but barely anything. She's a reader. So she the way she learnt to speak well, she said, I used to read the Bible in English, and that's how I picked up the correct language, the structure of the sentences and everything. And she's really good. She'd be amazing on a podcast. But anyway, she decided to teach us. She wanted to teach us Arabic, I think, but because my dad was very insistent in not teaching us Arabic, he said, no, I want them to speak really well. I want them to assimilate really well into Australian society. He didn't really want to hang around Egyptians at that time. Yeah. And I think they lived in Macquarie Park. Was it Macquarie Park, Macquarie Fields,
Macquarie
that
Fields.
area? Yeah, I forget the suburbs names. But then they moved to the hills.
Okay.
And at that time, there wasn't a lot of Egyptians around in that area. There are now, but there wasn't really at that time. And he liked moving away from the Middle Eastern cultures. He didn't want to be near places in Sydney that had Middle Eastern
Sounds
cultures.
like he really wanted to detach from it.
He did, yeah. He didn't have super traumatic things that he's expressed to me about Egypt. But anyway, so we didn't, I won't go into that anymore. It's like a bit too much of a tangent, but we didn't learn any Arabic is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I know like a few words here and there, and Sam knows better Arabic than me, even though it's different to Egyptian Arabic.
So, yeah, because you grew up in Kuwait.
Kuwait.
So
I got the Arabic
you would have
from
had
more Kuwait.
More Kuwait. So what, is that more like accents different or kind of like a more like dialect?
Kuwait was mixed. Like I had my friends mixed. There were Egyptians I had Jordanian friends or friends from Lebanon and the Kuwaiti speaking people and the Iraqi. It's all Middle East people. So so the school was a bit of mix and mostly Armenians. Anyway, like mainly
in your circles
in my circle. Armenians. And the church, but I went to Arabic speaking. Yes, I learned from everyone, and as well as from the school or from the TV. The accents is different, the dialect's different.
Okay, and well, quite similar to Rebecca's Egyptian. It's being a Christian minority in a majority Muslim country, and that, I guess, for people that love to just kind of garner their knowledge from mainstream sources would immediately probably get a bit triggered by that. But I feel like maybe that world is not as bad as people kind of say it is. Like, how did it feel for you growing up as an Armenians are very, very like traditionally like rich in culture, to be in a place like that? Like, what was it like growing up? Was there any? There was no issues. There was no tension between neighbors, or was it very harmonious and peaceful?
Everyday people that we grew up with, neighbors were Kuwaiti people. Honestly, it was lovely. It was great. It was harmony. It was like we worked with them, and we respected them. They respected us, and we all saw each other as sort of same. But we had our own religion, Christianity, and Muslim. We had our own language. The foods was the same. The songs were the same. Our parties, our gatherings, was pretty much the same. We understood one another. We didn't have much problem. But when it came to politics, when that came into the country, if there was a problem with the country, yes, we had to be careful. We knew that we didn't fit in. We weren't accepted. Sometimes things aggravated. Unfortunately, we're Armenians, we're Christians. We had to cope. Some fled, according to the laws they brought in. But we didn't have any violence as such as Christians are in such a big risk or being attacked, or it wasn't like that. We had little issues. With kids, unfortunately, we have bullying here. Like, we have so much bullying here. It's the same thing, no different. Yes, we did have bullying there as well. I've grew up with some bullying. I was left alone amongst 20 Kuwaiti kids, and they don't know why. They just think like, it's the same thing, bullying. Like, they don't know why they bully until something bad happens and they wake up to it. They say, so it's the same thing, really. But it was more peaceful back then. In my time. And
how old were you when you made the jump and came to Australia?
I was 17. I was 16, 17 when I left Kuwait.
So it's a pretty, like, not a tough age, but you're already looking back to, when I was 17 or when you were 17, you already have done a lot, and your character's already starting to develop a lot by 17. And this to say, hey, we're moving, different language, different kind of culture. It's a big thing. So do you think that kind of challenge or that hurdle of moving here, were you originally against it, or were you kind of like, I don't want to leave? Or did you feel like maybe what Kuwait was offering you was maybe not like viable anymore for what you guys wanted from your life?
The church I was attending to, Arabic speaking church,
Yeah.
it was amazing. I got so much, I was so hooked to it, to the friends, to the Bible, to the upbringing. But I was off the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
The like Rebecca's dad, he couldn't blend in this. I'm thinking, wow.
You were
I'm
happy
so-
to leave,
I was
think.
happy to did not look back at all. I wouldn't even go and visit at the moment. I would go and visit everywhere else, Europe and New Zealand, or anywhere else, but Middle East at the moment. I'm still feeling that way. But when we left Kuwait, we went to Italy
Oh, very nice.
for a year, and my goodness, that was like a big achievement, big dream to go to Europe, live with the Europeans, learn Italian, have Italian friends, and was a shock to the culture. Shock? Yes, it was. It was a big shock.
Were you accepted by them originally? Italians, being one myself, I know can sometimes have a little bit of a stereotype of being a little bit racist, especially now that Europe's got a very big migration crisis. A lot of them are very outspoken to it. I think because it's very unchecked. But when your family went, did you find that a lot of the similar cultural differences in terms of faith and family values and stuff generally allowed you to blend in a lot better, or did you still feel like a bit of an outsider, or they were accepting to you?
Absolutely. With Italy, I blend in I adopted their lifestyle.
It's a
They
very
were
good
much
lifestyle
easier,
too.
although it was totally different. The tension, the restrictness of Middle Eastern lifestyle and the beliefs to the family, it was harsh. It's harsh. Italy was very open, was wide open, and they were Christians. And I got into a scout team with them. They did not mind me not speaking Italian, and we were living right on the beach as well. That's where we were for a whole.
Which area was it?
Rome, Lido di Ostia. It's called the end of Rome. It's you get Ostia Antica, then Lido di Ostia.
The kind of near Fiumicino.
Where?
Fiumicino, where the airport is.
It was a bit far.
A little bit
Actually,
further than that?
maybe 40 minutes.
Okay.
Was near there, but it was beach lifestyle.
Okay.
And people were so friendly. They were nice. Like I did not have the bulliness that I had in Kuwait.
Okay.
Like it was more friendly. I had a girlfriend my first girlfriend
Wow.
was Italian. It was an amazing experience.
I love hearing those stories.
Yeah, and she was a few years old. I have stories for that as well. Like,
I would ask
as a
him to
teenager.
tell me about that.
And I had a beautiful experience with Italy, and until we came to Australia, and I was a refugee, by the way. In
Oh,
Italy.
okay. So you're
I
under
went to-
refugee status.
as refugees.
Okay.
I did work
Yep.
for a gelato bar, big gelato Italian famous restaurant. I was making gelatos. It was beautiful there. Then we got to come to Australia.
So Italy was transit, really.
It was
kind
a
of-
transit.
It was
Yeah.
a transit stop. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a
Right.
transit.
A very
did
awesome
miss-
transit. I
That is
think you really enjoyed
a nice,
it.
a nice.
I
view.
Yes.
Yeah, and then
It's
that
got very
when you
good, happy
becoming-
memories.
Yeah, like age of 17, like it's new into life, new into experience. It was beautiful. I did miss Italy. Never thought of Kuwait, but I missed the church, nothing else.
Okay.
But I missed the whole Italy. I always wanted to go back, and we did go back.
We did go.
Right?
Yeah, we went to
back
visit.
years later when.
Yeah, with
And,
our 7-week-old baby, the first baby we had. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our daughter. Yeah.
And then when I came to Australia, it's so funny. Again, another cultural shock. It's so unknown. I blended more into Italian life when I was in Italy than I was here in Australia, and I started all over again. It took me years to get used to Australian lifestyle, and I was into early 20s now.
Okay, right. So you already had started to cement becoming who you were.
Yes.
And Australia, I find, is a very fluid cultural identity because it depends on where you've come from. So, like for our family being Italian, yeah, I know we got an Australian accent, and we can kind of have that Australian tropes, as in like, yeah, she'll be right, it's all good, whatever. But if I go overseas and someone says to me, "Oh, where you from?" I say, "Oh, I'm from Australia," but don't typecast me as one of them, because even in Australia there's a level of how Aussie you are. When you talk about Aussie, I mean like you come on convict ships, but then you've also got that different style where I've been here for a few generations, or yeah, man, we're Australian, but you know, I don't eat dinners like the Smith family next door. We're very, very, very different. And I feel like that needs a lot of explaining because it's a part of you. You're proud.
I
can't
find
just
myself
say.
having to explain that as well.
Lifestyle. Like I couldn't go. I could never go have drinks in a bar. I could never do that lifestyle. Going to a pub regularly and then watch the footy. I never understood the footy for
Although he does
years.
watch the footy now because our
Only
three
now
boys
because
are
of
playing
my
rugby.
kids.
So there you go. You have to. But even like you said with the pub, like my dad, we never went to pubs. We never ate out. It was always good food, like at home.
Yeah, the
Partly
home cooking.
because, like you, we had a big family, so there's 5 of us.
Yeah.
And I would always used to say to my dad, can we go to La Gelateria? Can we get gelato? He goes, no, it's too expensive. And I'm thinking back then it would have been like $3-4 a scoop, right? But we're a big family. We eat a lot. So I would have been going like 1 scoop, like, come on, Dad, like, you know, give me like another 2. I'm not going to eat 1. So he goes, no, I got ice creams at home. And this was scarred me a lot because the ice creams at home were like icy poles. Like, Dad, what the hell? This is not an ice cream. I want the Monaco bars. No, they're for me and Mum. I said, this house is a prison. But no, but it's very, very interesting the dynamic of Australian culture. So you're both in Australia at this point. So how did you guys meet quite young as well?
I don't know. I mean, I think by today's standard, it's sort of can be a normal age that people meet. So I was, I think, around 27 when I met you, and you were 39, something like that. Is my maths right?
Yes.
And so we, I don't know. I'm just like, do I answer that question that we were saying before about how I went from Coptic church to or do we? We'll come back to that later.
We can circle.
We'll go back
around.
to
Well, I can briefly say.
And you've got
like
something you want to say.
although as much as we had church background, also in both our case happened that I got into ballroom dancing. Into dancing.
Ballroom dancing.
Ballroom dancing.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Then I got into Latin dancing.
Oh.
And then
So refined.
yeah.
Wow.
And then because of the Latin dance system here, you go out and with the certain schools, you go into nice places in the city.
Is that Latin dance? Sorry, in terms of like Argentinian kind of tango kind of
bit of
stuff.
the Argentinian tango, but more like salsa, cha-cha.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Then because with ballroom dancing, you couldn't go anywhere out as much as Latin. I got into salsa very quickly. So we learned salsa and then establishment, right? Or at the Rocks, at Vivas at the Rocks, like those nice, lovely places in Sydney. We used to hang out there. So there was drinks, but it was a bars open, but I wasn't for drinking. I was into dancing. There was a group like my mentality, same as my mentality, going out dancing weeknights, even weekends. It was beautiful. I was out 5 nights a week.
Wow.
As well as getting involved in teaching, getting involved in doing shows, corporate shows, wedding shows, the singing, doing all this stuff. I got that involved with Latin lifestyle, salsa, like Latin dance lifestyle.
Right, so you've clearly got so many like talents, dancing and teaching and this. So what's your profession now? Like, what do you do for work now?
Yep, and at meantime, to top that up, I had my own shop. Jewelry, watches and jewelry.
Okay.
In shopping center.
Yeah.
7 days operated shop, and so I had to do my shop. I had to run my shop.
Do you want to adjust the mic? You
Oh,
bumped
sorry.
it.
Yeah.
Adjust
And
it.
I had to do my work, build that up, and keep that going, as well as doing the nightlife, as fun, but as getting a bit of a side pocket money as well. They want me to do shows, seeing. I was involved, dragged into bit of pocket money.
Busy at this point.
Yeah,
Like, bloody hell.
and that nightlife of my earning and entertainment was a lot more exciting for me than being in a shopping center.
Oh yeah, I mean, but to commit to a shop life, as we know here, is to commit all of you. I understand
Everything,
that.
Yeah.
high rent,
Yeah.
expensive life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, amazing.
Even just the feeling of in a shopping center, it's so draining. The lights, the sound, the echo. He used to not like any of
No,
that.
it's not
you
an
know?
environment that's made to elevate you. It's actually, it depends how you want to view consumerism and shopping centers. They're actually kind of built in a way to lower you a little bit. Like, I don't like going in there because I feel like I'm feeding off everyone else, and I'm like, I don't want to be seen in here. I don't want people to see me in here. I don't like being in here because I don't feel that the people here are happy. And if they are happy, they're kind of, it's that materialism happy, which is not ideal, because like, you know, it's materialism is what's tethering you to the, you know, to hell essentially. So when I feel like, you know, on Sundays and people say, let's go to the mall, I'm like, oh, come on,
It's the worst thing
go to a
that you
park
would
or
want to
something.
do. Yeah.
Go for a walk in the forest or go
Yes,
to the mall.
it's true,
Go
isn't it?
go in the nature. Yeah.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
he can't stand it if I try to drag him to a shopping centre. No, I get it, absolutely.
Sky.
And it's not my thing to be there for very long amounts of time either, just what you need to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to go, the one back step is like Rebecca turned up to be into loving her dancing, and then she was into dancing, and she dragged her sisters and her brother into dancing as well.
Yeah.
At very early stage, we bumped into each other
Yeah.
at dancing.
I had just come back from 2 years in London, teaching in London. I was a primary school teacher.
Oh, nice.
And I haven't gone back to teaching for a few years now, with having all my children and everything. 7 kids.
Wow. Okay. Because that's
Yeah.
that's a new avenue to take now in this conversation. 7 children.
Yeah.
That's something that's like reminiscent of something you read in a history textbook. You know, oh, such and such in the year 1850 had 7 children. And it's like, wow, who would have 7 children? I would. To me, it's a beautiful thought. Like to have that many, but to be able to pull it off in this modern time now, I guess is what makes you guys very special. And when the opportunity came up, when my sister told me about you guys, 7 kids, and I'm like, wow, like that's incredible, because I know that my mum's grandfather was one of 23 or 4 children.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I guess, can you imagine after 7 doing that over another 10 times?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's
I was 31 when I had my first child.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
So-
if I met her, sorry to cut you,
Yeah.
if I met you at the age of 18 or 21, I think
It would have been
probably
the same, 23 kids.
We would have had so many kids. We started late with 7 kids.
Such a beautiful thing to have that many kids. Like, I would love to have a third.
He's
but
actually,
it's-
he's speaking in all seriousness.
No,
am
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
Because that's something we committed to before we got married. We spoke about it. We said, you know, the thought of having children can be scary in this day and age financially. You feel like you have to provide all these things for your children, but you probably don't even need half of the things that
No, of
people
course
think.
not. Yeah.
But what it was is we, you know, for me, I was reading some books about, and also St. John Paul II, his works about, you know, just some of his teachings, basically. And then I'm trying to remember the books. I should have looked them up before I came. But one person that influenced me a lot is Scott Hahn, Kimberly Hahn. They're Catholics from America, and they've got St. Paul's Center in America, and they've got amazing resources online for people. They have a book called Life-Giving Love, and that quoted a lot of St. John Paul II's works and some other popes and some other teachings from the, you know, first fathers of the church, and obviously all the scriptures and everything, why it's important as a Christian to be open to life. That's what they call it, being open to life. That's the phrase. So I coined that phrase to Sam. I said, do you know what this means? And even though I'm Coptic background, and I am now going back to I'm in the Coptic church. It's my regular place of worship. I said, I want to be open to life. I just, in my spirit, this sits so well. And of course, I had the faith that what I read in the Bible is true. It's like, because some people don't necessarily believe in that Jesus is God, for example, or they have their spiritual faith, but they don't have it's not connected to Jesus in particular as being the truth, because that's what Christians say is the way, the truth,
the way,
the life.
the truth, exactly. Yeah.
So Sam at least agreed with me on that point about, you know, when we were sort of getting engaged with each other to be married, we agreed that Jesus is the truth. Although he he had a lot of experience in other things. Like you experience some things, other spiritualities before we got married as well, and he used to tell me about things, and he used to try and pretend that he was from, like, he was a bit new agey when I met him, but when he said he's Armenian, I'm like, you've got your Christian roots under there. You're just
100%.
He was just like,
I wouldn't believe it for a
he was
second.
telling me about the sun and the moon and the alignment and everything and the energy, and I was like, they're all your words that you're just using because of the friends you're hanging around right now. But I knew I knew it wasn't true. And I was right. I had that feeling in my spirit that he's just saying this stuff to joke. And
or just trying to reinvent
he didn't throw me off at all. He tried. I don't know if he tried to throw me off. You weren't trying to throw me off. He was just trying to impress me. Yeah.
Even though that stuff you were saying there is definitely applicable.
Yes.
I mean, like for me, like with gardening and stuff, I know that you can garden by the cycles of the moon and everything
That's
like that,
right.
and the sun's energy and this and that. But like, I think why a lot of people say that kind of thought is a dead end is because they put all their eggs into that basket. And I feel like that doesn't give you any truth or anything. It's just kind of like, all right, energy from the sun, the moon, the tides. All right, so what now? Whereas like, as you said, having your faith in Jesus and as the truth and using his teachings and his lessons to raise your vibration up to be able to live in accordance to his, not only to his lessons, but to mold yourself to be able to mimic his ministry. You don't get that from that new age stuff, and I feel like that's why it's a dead end, because it doesn't really empower you in a sense. And I don't know, because you were the one practicing that kind of stuff, did you feel like if you hadn't have met Rebecca that you would have kept maybe grown your hair and had some dreadlocks or something? Or
He did have long hair at one stage. Yeah, ponytail.
It was I had long
I
hair.
never met him with a ponytail, and I'm glad I didn't.
That's probably a deal
I like
breaker,
the
I
no
think.
ponytail.
It was part of the shows into where we're at, but meditating was a big part as well. Like I wasn't into youth. I was into youth. I was serving the church and but when I was away from that, I was into meditation some stage, and I did enjoy the quietness, the stillness, even out of curiosity. Like I was in Inner West back then. And I also lived in Paddington, like in this city, so you can see like I'm close to Newtown, all that. All my friends. Like I went to see what's there, what's that all about, the healing and stuff, and changing energies, all that sort of stuff. But every time I did participate into something, I always prayed. I said, Jesus, please walk with me, be with me, see what's there, what's there.
He was exploring it, and he still.
But I always walked in literally with Jesus. But what was my faith was always, since growing up, I was strong with Christianity, with the faith. And I say, if I'm doing anything wrong, just in case something is not correct, or if it's open, exposed for the wrong thing, please protect me, Jesus. I always went into as a Christian faith to see what it is. I actually enjoyed the stillness, being close, and up till now, like instead of going into a busy place, into a big massive church loud, I like to go into stillness, quietness, and talk to
in private.
In private, personal.
The scripture dictates
secret.
that to pray behind closed doors, and not to be like the Pharisees and pray so everyone can see you, because that's not the right way to pray.
Yes, it's not beneficial to you.
Well, of course not, because you're doing it for everybody else. So that is very interesting, because maybe without even knowing that scripture, you were doing it properly. Oh, for everyone that can hear a little baby cooing, that's their youngest boy, Raphael.
Raphael's here, yeah.
He's here.
He's happy. Is he all good? Yeah. You can pop him on the floor and let him sit if you feel you need to give him a different position. Yeah.
Cute boy.
But he seems all right.
It's amazing that, and I feel like, in terms of the spirituality, what you were saying, you're essentially just cultivating a different part of the same plot, like, because that's all linked inextricably. The meditating, or prayer is meditating. I do breath work every morning because it invites in gratitude, and it's all the same side of the same coin. Like, it's all the same stuff. It's just, I feel like a lot of modern faith, especially modern institutionalized Christianity, now, it very much encourages divide, especially among the sects.
Yes.
Not sects, sects. So, like, if you're Protestant, you can't believe this. If you're Catholic, you have to believe that. And they don't allow it to be fluid. Like, for us, for example, we're Italian, so we're brought up by default Catholic, but we've got an Eastern Orthodox part of our family that are Greek Orthodox.
Oh, really?
And yes. So I've got icons in here. My room is full of icons. My house is where I live. In my apartment where my wife had just moved from, where she's Mexican. So talk about Catholic tradition at its absolute like height.
Yeah.
That's what you get there.
Yes.
We got beautiful, essentially this icon behind me, that one, we've got that in a statue form that we got from Mexico. That's like this big. And we got it as soon as you walk into our house. It's beautiful because it's Jesus from the cross and Mary holding him.
Like a Pieta.
Kind of, yes, exactly, like the Pieta. And someone could come in and say, well, that's so morbid. You've got a mother holding a dying son in your house. And I said, but it's not what it's about. When I see that, I think of when I'm going through my darkest days, I think of me and my mother in this situation, like how, how she must be holding me when she sees me going through some of the things that I've been through with illnesses and that. And all it serves as a reminder of why you're doing what you're doing, why you believe what you do, that he suffered for you, and it just reminds you. Otherwise you feel like you forget. That's why I have the iconography around me, because it aids in that worship in a sense.
Yes.
But a lot of the modern Christianity now, I think they love the divide. Whereas funny how you said you spoke about what faith meant to you and whether you were compatible on that level. It's funny with my wife. I said to her, hey, what if I was an Orthodox Christian, like a Greek Orthodox, and I wanted to get married in the Orthodox Church? She goes, I wouldn't marry you. And I find it very interesting because I said, you do know it's the same faith, right? Like the only difference realistically, theologically, between Orthodoxy and Catholicism is they just disagree on the nature of Christ. That's it. That is it. The rest of it is just eats and tradition, chanting and the icons. That's the only difference. She goes, I wouldn't do it. And I said, well, I'm glad we're both Catholics then, because I really love you, and I wouldn't want to.
It's better. It's easier when you're united in more things. And look, that's been a bit of a challenge for us, because we are from different Christian backgrounds.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've experienced sort of his background too, and I'm
course.
more fluid. I'm a very fluid Christian.
I think it's important to be like that.
Yeah.
It is all the same stuff, really.
But like you said, we are all Christian, and we've had many times where we've disagreed on things or been frustrated about things. Like, for example, my people in my congregation at church know that I go to church with my kids on my own because my husband doesn't like to celebrate the liturgy the way that we do, or the service the way that we do. It's just not his. He's like, And I'm like, okay, that's been hard for me.
Well, I was going to say, was that hard in the beginning for you?
It still is hard.
Because I know we're not supposed to care about it that much, but do they know that people are kind of like, oh, she's here alone again? Do you feel like that they talk in that kind of regard, or you just block it? You're like, I don't care what they think.
Of course I wonder if people talk, but I also do. That's not, I know it's not important about what people think.
Exactly.
I just need to run the race that God's given me, and not focus on those things. But no, most of the people at church are really lovely and gracious. And I just say to them, give them a simple explanation, because they do ask why. And but I say, it's actually taught me that as a Christian, I need to stay united to my husband, who is also Christian, even though we don't go to church in the same place, or that he doesn't come with me. And of course, it's been hard for me to have to get up with all these children, and sometimes I do have my mum come and come to the same place as me, so she helps me, or my sister. But sometimes I go on my own, and it was hard, but at the same time, to me, it's more important to keep the unity in the home. And because I have such a strong desire to take my children to church and to get them to receive the Eucharist often. I like to give them consistency. I think it's an important thing for a child. I'm sticking to it. It's in my spirit to do it. So I'm like, regardless of what my husband's doing, I have to do what's true to me, 100%. What I believe is right. So, and Sam he does feel bad. I think you feel bad sometimes when I go off on my own, but it's just where he's at the moment.
You need to be true to
I've got to give him that space to grow wherever God's leading him to. So
I used to go like regularly.
He did try quite a few times. Even though if anyone came to Coptic church, they would probably say it's more of a quiet church. And even though he's saying he likes quietness, still the sound, the chanting, everything, it's too...
Incense, a bit overpowering.
No, I don't think he minds the
The
incense.
repetitiveness.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, there's a lot of incense.
Yeah.
You leave church and your clothes are just drenched
but you
with
feel,
the smell
you feel
of
like
incense.
cleansed though.
Yeah.
Because that's the pagan part of the sage cleansing, or with frankincense or something. Because I understand that when we sage our house and I sage all my icons, saging that is a very pagan practice, and I think a lot of people do forget that the merging of pagan practices and Christianity is there. I mean, receiving the Eucharist, when you really think about it, taking the bread and the what is a pagan practice. The body and the blood, it's very much linked, absolutely. And you even find in a lot of places around the world, especially in the New World,
I don't understand what you're saying. It's a pagan practice. Can you explain that to me? Because I don't know what you're saying.
The concept of like taking the body and the blood, in terms of like his flesh and his blood, even though it's symbolic, has pagan undertones to it. For as a lot of those pagan traditions, especially in ancient Roman, that would have been like sacrifice and all that kind of thing. So the undertones are there, but I was building on that even in my wife's culture in Mexico, those old Aztec themes have now fused with Christianity. So a lot of those churches were built on where the pyramids were, because those ancients understood that those ley lines run through those pyramids, and it's the same energy. It just depends how you want to harness it. So I found that in Mexico, all those churches were built where pyramids were, but there was a reason for that, because they understood that even though that they were practicing pagan, non-Christian beliefs, that the energy was the same. It just depends how you tapped into it. That's what I was trying to build on.
I understand what you're saying.
I found that very interesting as well. But the fact that you guys balance that out is really nice too.
Like he's saying, this is my blood, this is my body. You think, what is it, so gothic or so?
Well, that's what caused a lot of the apostles to stop following Jesus. They're like, I'm not going to eat flesh and blood. It caused it, not a division, but it did. It divided the followers at the time when he said that, you're going to eat my body and my blood. It's like
same thing with healing. In my name, you're healing someone in Jesus' name. People look at it, how it's so demonic. Is that how spirit, under what spirit you're doing this healing or miracle or casting demon? They can't relate it into. It's godly work. The first thing they do is they relate it into something demonic. It's the same thing, eating his blood. But
it's very easy to get caught up, I feel like, in those little nitty-gritty details. But what I love so far about what I'm hearing is it's very much your own personal relationship. And I think it's best not to get caught up in all of the extra stuff, because for me, for example, when I feel like my relationship with Christianity, I like to separate very much from what Jesus said and what man has said. So when you've got the whole thing, like when we got married in the Catholic Church, we had the priest telling us about marriage, and we had to do a marriage course, where another celibate person that was chaste as well was like, this marriage is like this. I'm looking at my wife, what does this guy know about marriage? He's never had sex and he's never been married. So what's he telling me this for? But I knew that that's what was going to happen, but I was just kind of being a smart ass. And I said to my missus, see, this is why I like Orthodoxy better, and even Protestantism in a way, because at least their priests are married. They have every right to give me advice because they've lived it. Otherwise, it's a bit weird to me. But I know that from scripture as well, that you can still get good advice, because a part of the thing that really gets me is you don't always have to have lived that way to be able to dispense advice. It just depends to what point you find it valid, but it doesn't matter. I definitely prefer in my to separate all that kind of stuff as well, because I feel like a lot of people are caught up in the pomp of it now. So the ceremony, doing this, the big churches, but they kind of forget that no, the relationship is very personal. And I feel like you guys balance each other with that duality very well. How you, Sam, like the more personal, at home, closed doors, but you love the way that your faith does its liturgy. I'm very similar in a sense. Like my wife and I enjoy when we go to Mexico. I say I wish there was more chanting, I wish there was more incense, because I don't do enough of it. But I don't feel like I'm getting enough out of it. As you said, when the incense is over you, you kind of feel like you're refreshed.
Yes.
That's kind of why I was drawn a bit more to Orthodoxy because of that.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
could do it daily, by the way. She can go and take the Holy Communion every day, and she
Wow.
could live by it.
But it's,
Yeah.
it's beautiful though. Like
Yeah.
it just says a lot about your character and how
Yeah.
like you believe in
I
something
wish
so
I
strongly.
did. Like, I honestly, I do struggle big time with, you know, the younger children. And obviously, you know, sometimes I have this, you know, like when you get married, I think the enemy does this to you. It sort of makes you feel like, have you married the right person? And, you know, you know, coming back to that thought, actually, I do love confession. I think that's an amazing thing the church, Catholic and Orthodox have.
Yeah.
It's so good psychologically to go and speak to someone who's saying, I'm in place of Christ, and go and speak without any, they love you and they listen to you and they give you, say, yep, your sins are forgiven. You know, like what Saint Peter was told, he had the keys to the kingdom, and, you know, you can loose the sins on earth or you can keep them bound, you know, and that was something that was given in the scriptures. And we know, you know, it's been taken through with all the apostolic churches now. Just like the Eucharist is also an apostolic church thing. So anyway, you know, I was looking for a confession father, like someone to go to, and it didn't sit right with me to go to my Orthodox. You know, I want to go to the same person, just so they get to know me a little bit, be a bit of a spiritual direction too. Not that I need that, because I really feel the Holy Spirit speaking to me all the time at home. Is for everyone.
Very in tune
it doesn't
with
matter
it.
where you are. But I found a beautiful priest not far from my home, like within 10 minutes drive, and he's just amazing. So I felt really called, and I had some really strong signs that for this period of time, this is a good person to go and have confession with. And I'm not someone that is super regular with confession. I try my best to go more often, but again, with the restraints of motherhood and things, I find it hard to always get there on a regular basis. But I was saying to this priest, you know, I really feel called, that God is calling me to come to you, even though I'm going to the Orthodox church, but I feel like you're the person I need to speak to. And I said, he said, what's troubling you and everything at the moment? So I'm going through a really hard patch with my husband, because we go to, you know, I go to church with my kids on Sundays, and he doesn't want to come and help me, and I'm feeling frustrated. I'm going through a big frustration. I've been lashing out and things at home because of it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he asked me a few questions, and I told him about how we're open to life. He knows that I've got 7 kids. When he sees me, he says, this is one of the richest women I know, when he sees me with all his kids. And I think, you know, what a beautiful mindset that he has, because some priests are very like, yeah, you've had 2 kids, 3 kids, that's enough, you know, don't have any more. Some priests are like that. But some are like, well done you for having all these kids.
100%.
Some are, and some aren't. Like, some don't get it. So anyway, this one gets it.
Scripture's very clear.
Yeah, well,
It
people will interpret it the way they want to.
Yeah.
But the Catholic Church is clear on this, that to be open to life, not to use contraception. I loved that. I love there was clarity that the Catholic Church taught that. And then I was like, well, why? Why don't they say to use contraception? And why do they say to have children if you can have children? And all I want to say is we've seen the fruit in our marriage and the love and the bonding that it gives to us in the marital union, of saying, when we come together, we are giving everything to each other. We're not holding back the part of us that can create a new life, because God is all about creation. He's all about being fertile.
Yeah.
Whereas you can see the culture of today, it's a culture of death. It's end people's lives, you know, by euthanasia. It's abortions. It's IVF and pick the eggs you want and kill some of them, you know, because, you know, it's not, life's not considered from the contraception point in many people's eyes. It's just a fetus. And so that's a culture of death we're living in. And it's very materialistic. It's very sterile in some ways, you know.
At least it is here anyway. In this where we live now.
And Europe is very
Europe
similar.
Starting to move away a little bit now.
But even like in my Coptic church, there's not a lot of people that are open to life and not using contraception. They do use contraceptives. It's accepted. The priests don't tell you not to. It's only the Catholic Church that you'll have priests that will very clearly say to you, no, it's not good to use
I
contraceptions.
feel like the young kids you see in your congregation now, maybe because they've been in Australia for a couple of generations, they're kind of adapted to the way the mindset is here. They just will purposely just choose to ignore that bit because, even I remember my old man telling me when I brought that up with him, I said, Dad, like, is it only for marriage or, and he just said, like, if you meet someone out and you go on a few dates and you're still courting and you want to then take your relationship to the next level, he goes, well, then do it. It doesn't even matter if you're not going to have children with her. He kind of goes, you got to understand that, like, this is life. He goes, you might not know that you want to be with this girl unless you go through this physical step, which me growing up in a very tight marriage, lots of kids home, quite like the way your kids have been brought up as well with you guys. I then, because of my upbringing, saw relationships like that. I never really saw any of the women that I was with as one-nighters. I tried to go for women that I thought the girls that I would marry. I would marry, yeah.
Yes.
That's and I thought that was the perfect contemporary middle ground to the whole contraception thing. But we're the same in my marriage. We didn't. I hear like a lot of people now talk about the pill and this and that. And I know from my research that is just a big unregulated experiment on women. And a lot of them will kind of say, oh, but I need it to regulate acne and this and that. I said, what are you talking about? Like dietary changes and all these other things will fix your acne. And a lot of people still say to me in my family, oh, you guys will have another one. You just don't know it. I said, well, no, we're not, because we don't want another one. They said, oh, I'll surprise you. I said, well, I think I know how to make a child and know how to not make a child. So thanks, but like, no thanks. I just found that really strange because me, like, I said to her, you never take the pill, please. That's going to ruin your body.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. Like it's a very, very tricky one, but I understand it's a tricky one because it's different for everybody. But I quite like how honest and vulnerable you are when talking about it. It's very refreshing, actually, because I feel like a lot of people are a little bit out of touch or don't want to talk about it, but it's nice to hear it being spoken in such an open forum. Even what you said with abortion and stuff as well, like, I've got my thoughts on that, but I'm not a yes or no person. If someone says, well, do you think abortion's right? I can't give yes or no. I got to give yes, but no, but.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of with that, obviously, the thing is with that, and I'll divulge my opinion a little bit on abortion. It's interesting because definitely because the biggest argument that these women make is, what about rape? What about incest and all that kind of thing? I said, that's the big gray area, right? But I have a bit of not a comedic spin on it, but Dave Chappelle had a really good view on this when it comes to abortion and keeping a child. So firstly, my main view on that is, after a certain point, no. Depending on the circumstances, this is the thing. But the way I talk about it in more of the legality and gender role kind of sense is, okay, if in a very biased court system in Australia, that it is the women's choice always, yet what if it's the husband doesn't want it and she does? He still has to then pay child support. So it should work both ways. He says, Dave Chappelle, the comedian, who has abortion views, says that, all right, if she then wants to keep it, then he should be exempt. But if he wants to keep it and she doesn't, then that's the way it has to work. Then he shouldn't be able to pay child support. What do you think of that? Make sense?
Wow.
Because it has to work both ways. At the end of the day, regardless, let's just say in a perfect world, it's between two consenting adults.
Yeah.
It takes two to tango, right? So I don't understand how then, well, from a woman's perspective, if it takes two to tango and you wanted to, but he didn't, do you say, no, well, sorry, I'm going to have it and you still have to pay? Is that something that would sit well with you? Or would you think, because it's a tricky thing to be in, because unless you're in that position, you can't know.
We're not coming back to this huge, problem that we've got now. It is a problem. It's being intimate with people without any responsibilities.
Yes, exactly.
We really do need to. I'm not saying that we were perfect in this, but we really need to go back to the way Christ told us to do it. And that was commit to the person first and stay committed.
Yes.
but we've got promiscuity, and the contraception only causes more promiscuity. The pill only causes more promiscuity because people can have, the choice of being, free in that area without, maybe potentially having a child.
Yeah.
And then look at how a child is looked at then. It's like, oh no, I don't want a child now. And we've got this controlling culture as well. We're all like looking at being in control of everything. And what we are learning now through having 7 children, being open to life, not using contraception, is give the control over to God. Mm-hmm. And we want A, B, C, D, E, F, G for financially, but God can provide all those things, and we're seeing it. He wants to teach you something so much deeper. So I believe what the issue here is, especially for people that can have children, they're married and they choose not to have children. They're like, we've got 2 or 3 and it's already hard and financially, financial stresses. Well, we know all about that as well. But I feel like people need to learn to let go and let God be in control. You have to let the truth permeate your life. And it is very clear, and I believe it's very clear in Scripture about contraception. Yep. It's very clear. I also believe that the Catholic Church has it right on this point. And this is an Orthodox Protestant. I went to Protestant churches growing up too. This is coming from me. Like, I'm looking at the Catholic Church and saying, you've got it bang on the head. Yeah. And look, Sam, same. He doesn't go to an apostolic church, but he agrees with this. He felt, when I told him that, we were standing in my parents' garage, that before we got married, and I said, I don't want to do contraception when we get married. I would like to be open to having children. Maybe God will give us one, maybe he'll give us more, I don't know. I felt like I was a healthy person. I felt like I might end up having quite a few kids. But the funny thing is, anyway, he accepted that, and he said, I really feel that's the Holy Spirit thing that you're saying. When I read some things to him as well, he says, it is right. It is true. He felt it in his spirit. He also, we also agree on other things. Like, we wanted to homeschool our kids. We didn't want to vaccinate our kids. Yes. We had these things that were, although he questioned me about homeschool. He questioned me about vaccinations. He said, oh no, we have to vaccinate our kids.
Challenging a really big foundational science, but
we have been fed this rhetoric, or this, we've been indoctrinated with certain things growing up in Western culture, and it's a culture, it's a world culture about vaccinations. So anyway, but the beautiful thing is he's got this open spirit, which we both tend to have. We'll listen to anything, talk about anything. And all he needed to have at that point about the vaccination was, well, show me some proof.
Bit of assurance.
Assurance. And again, he only needed a bit, and he was like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And
if you allow it to click, or you allow it to flow through you, you just have to be open-minded. And as you were saying there, sometimes I feel like it's not the reports or the proof that's going to, because you can look at all the studies that say that certain, and I don't like to use the V word much because I've already had a video taken off the thing.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That was it was ridiculous.
Is it still getting flagged?
Oh, it was only, I had a naturopath on that was talking about the heavy metals they have in it, and they flagged that for misinformation. I'm like, but it's not misinformation. It's like on the label.
We're not saying any of that. We're just saying it's a choice, and we chose not to.
And we've seen some people, friends, kids being way before COVID. So at that time, as we were speaking, we had my friend's sister's kid, absolutely healthy, and he got into seizure immediately out of a side effect, and that was one proof already there. Yeah, and it all happened at the same time.
Perfectly
Gary's,
sort of happened. Yes,
right when it
child.
It's like what I was telling him. He saw it firsthand, and he was like, I'm so glad we didn't vaccinate our child. He felt like that.
That's way before the COVID issue, the demands. And then your cousins, your relatives, kids becoming...
yes, I've got a first cousin that is a non-verbal autistic child.
And they correlated that pretty much to sync up with...
They saw the regression straight after the 12-month MMR shot.
Yeah.
And
it was absolutely healthy human beings, little kids.
Oh, I've heard this
And
numerous
sudden-
times here at the shop with people, for sure. Even my
Yeah.
sports masseuse goes that he's exactly the same thing. He said one of his mates back in Russia, where he's from, literally as soon as he had that 5-year thing, he just stopped talking and hasn't spoken since. He's like 13. So it's terrible stuff.
it's so
Well, hats off to you guys and the people that figured it out before COVID, because that's when a lot of people can pinpoint their awakening moment. But there have been people.
So much good came out of that.
Oh, a lot
and so
did.
much hardship too, and horrible things. But Anyway, we're so glad we do meet on so many things. So going back to this priest, when I told him about my husband and he asked me a little bit about it, he says, and I told him how we agree on, he says, because he goes to me, hold on, wait a minute, your husband's open to having children and it's a Holy Spirit thing that's leading him and you. He says, I'm sorry. He says, but I don't want you to stress about your marriage anymore. God's leading him. I want you to be assured that God's leading. It's okay that you don't sort of come from the same church backgrounds, which you hear a lot of Catholic podcasts and they're like, make sure you're both Catholic before you get married. And I do watch, and look, that's actually a true thing. I really believe if you're more united on more things, but
course.
you want it to not just be a name thing. You want it to be a deep spiritual, like you're both similar, deeply spiritual in the similar. Like, I was telling you about Scott Hahn, Kimberly Hahn. They are amazing, people that seem like so equally yoked, and they're doing an amazing job in America. But he always says my biggest cross is Kimberly. The name of my cross is Kimberly. You know how Jesus says we carry a cross?
Yeah.
And I tell Sam that now, you're the name on my cross. It's true. Marriage is hard. Like there's going to be so many challenges, but this priest just assured me and said, but God is moving. And I said, you're right. And I realized that I was letting the evil one dishearten me so much. And from that time, Sam he's got to give this kudos or this, take his hats off to these priests, because even the other day I watched another priest online. It was just a TikTok video that was talking about how important it is for a woman to make sure that she gives men physical, affection often, be intimate often. Sure. And he was like, I like what this priest is saying. And I'm like,
refused.
So I just want to say, like, I do love, there are so, every church does it. They talk about every aspect of life, but I really believe the Catholic Church is so deep on many things that I love, and I just love it. I think I am I'm an underground Catholic, but I'm not, because I'm saying it openly, and I honestly believe it's all Christian anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no point being divided on such little details like that, because there's more in faith, especially for Christians, that can unite you than divide you, and even through Christian history, like, the Council of Chalcedon, the Arian Christians, they all just disagreed on these minute details. At the end of the day, I just don't
Sometimes it was just a terminology.
The nature of Christ.
Yeah.
But what's that got to do with how you're treating people and his actual message? And I feel like that's been lost.
The love
is
lost. The love between churches, So, now, or another thing I would probably have to say is my biggest influence growing up, from about 15 years of age, is reading the True Life in God messages. So this is a mystic now.
Yeah.
So in the Catholic and Orthodox churches, they have people called mystics, which sort of links to the New Age words.
Well, Padre Pio is a very famous Italian mystic.
Right. And my sister just went to Italy and saw his, his body there and everything.
Wow.
And she did a beautiful tour around Italy. She saw the Shroud of Turin Church, but they didn't have it on display. Have you heard of the Shroud of Turin?
Yes, I've heard of it, and I've read books as well that have tried to refute its validity by saying that. I read this one that said that it was actually Leonardo da Vinci's face in that, and he was just trolling everyone. But that was a book that was building on the premise of Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
But that's all just opinion. But if you truly have faith that it is what it is, well then it's done its job. But I
want to tell you that the Shroud of Turin, there's no way it could have been recreated. There's no technology on earth that can recreate that shroud. There was controversy about the carbon dating and things like that as well. But that was also because the French nuns did the weaving of a corner of it that was damaged. It's been through a lot of fires and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not an expert on it. There's an amazing conference coming up in a week's time for it. But my mum, with his True Life and God messages, one of the things Jesus says is my shroud is authentic. It's true. It's an incredible thing when you look into it. I saw it when I was like 12, 14 years old. There was a Coptic church in Mount Druitt that had the shroud replica, life-size replica on display. And I didn't know what I was looking at. I was so baffled and confused at that time. Probably you. I can see your mind. If you went and saw that, it would have stuck with you more than me. But just lately again, it's starting to stick with me more. The shroud is actually a receipt of what happened to Christ with his suffering and resurrection.
Delicate way to put it. It's a very nice way to put it.
It's like an Aldi receipt. It shows all of the marks. It shows the like everything. The blood is matching to all the Eucharistic miracles. It's an incredible thing that cannot be recreated. It's the most studied artifact in all of history, and with the most, like, it's got people that are not Christians or Catholics that have studied it. And it's so underrated. People don't realize that there's actual evidence of what happened to Christ and the fact that he rose again, because there was I don't know how many trillion watts of light that all of a sudden shone into that cloth to show that he rose. There was light that came from that tomb. It's really like when you go to find that out. Sorry, it's you just you realize that Satan can't make you think that Christianity is not real anymore. It's true, and that's why they always talk about Christ can't just have died. He needed to have risen again. Because he's God. And God, because he's eternal, he made that eternal sacrifice. You know, we no longer do we do a sheep or a lamb or a blood sacrifice.
Yes, he was the last sacrifice.
Lamb.
Yes,
he was the last lamb.
He's the Lamb of God, eternal Lamb. He gives a perpetual sacrifice, which we get to eat and drink every time we go to an apostolic church. And Jesus does say that the Orthodox communion and the Catholic communion are true presents. And I'm quoting from, I'm paraphrasing from these True Life and God messages. So
love it. It's good.
I want you to just I always tell my kids that now, because I remember growing up, I was confused and I was like, oh, is Christianity really real? Isn't it a big fake thing? And then I know there's Freemasonry that's infiltrated into the church as well. And we've had a lot of trouble with priests and things like that. And every part of the church has had Satan's smoke trying to get in. But the truth is still there. And you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater with this whole matter, because some people want to, because they've gone down the whole rabbit hole of the black, web and what's going on with all these child sex trafficking. And, they're finding, so they're sort of just like, oh, I don't have any trust in anything institutionalized anymore. I don't know what you think about that.
It's looking at it too externally. Like if you, I got people in here now, a co-worker we have that normally works in this spot. He goes, oh, the church is just pedophiles and this and that. And I said, well, you're right. Don't disagree with what you're saying. I agree. It is any institution, any governing body like that at the top will be corrupted in some way. The fish always rots from the head, right? So that's the way that it goes. But the truth is not in the patriarchs or the Coptic patriarchs that wear the big crowns or anything like that. It's with the lay people, just the general believers like you that are telling to your kids, this is the way. They're having kids, they're following scripture. That's where it lies. If you're putting your faith in an institution, you're already kind of missing the point.
Yes.
Because that is just, it already says in the gospel that, paraphrasing Jesus, what he said, he goes, you're not going to find a path to me in big churches and stuff. He even says that that's not the way to do it. It's more in your heart, your relationship with other people. It's all very clear in the scripture, but as we were saying, it's moving away more to other stuff that isn't. It's moving away from the actual teachings themselves. But it's very interesting you say that about so many thoughts I want to say at once. It's so crazy.
I know, me too.
All right, half time's over. We've got another little beautiful presence in here now. He was a bit unsettled.
This is our bite-sized sample of our family, which we're about to uncover and show in a sec when he's ready to come out.
This is number 7.
Yes, number 7.
And what a beautiful way to transition into this next part. So you were saying you have 7 children, and I think the most controversial thing in terms of modern standards anyways, you're homeschooling them. And I think there's more people watching than we think that would love to admit, but probably wouldn't, that they want to do exactly what you're doing. I think there's a lot of disillusionment now in education, high school. I guess I'll start off by, in terms of my time at school, I thought I learned nothing. I learned reading, writing, arithmetic. That's great. I can talk to people. But I harnessed and cultivated most of that out of school because of a lust I have for learning, reading, poetry, writing. I almost self-taught myself how to talk and articulate just from practicing. I could probably had one English teacher that I give a lot of credit to for introducing me to a lot of these things. But otherwise, I feel like a lot of it was more or less a waste of time. But I'd love to get your thoughts on exactly why you decided to go that route. What are the biggest challenges as well? Because it's not an easy thing to do, especially since, if you're working too. I mean, I guess if you want to start on that, Sam, while...
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I didn't know that I loved that much kids, that many kids. As they came along, I go, wow! I got so attached to them. I wanted to be part of all during the day with them all day. That's something I had as nature naturally. Then and I don't like the system, too much of system a lot, like the rush of preparing them and rushing them to the schools and going and picking them up. The idea of homeschooling, I liked it better. It was more comfortable. Yeah. Then later on, I realized again how much I had to join, to connect with them, be with them, and see with their difficulties, what the challenges are with them, like a specific topic they're not good at, and it didn't matter. It's okay. Like anything that my child wasn't good in learning, I took my time. It's okay, and then I left it. I went back to it the following day or the week. We took a week, for example, and things were a lot quicker. Within 2 hours, we finished the schooling. Like within 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours maximum sometimes, and.
He's talking
some
about,
days
we can finish the bookwork side of it, or
Yeah.
getting them to do some practical bookwork that can be over in an hour or two.
But do you have an actual curriculum that you've set out? Do you wing it, or is it very structured? Like exactly what you're going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Did the kids wake up and say, all right, we have to gather on the floor today, and do you start every day with a prayer? Is it structured? Like how do you do it? Do you emulate school in terms of the classroom style, or is it completely unique to how to what your family dynamic is?
Unique because I don't think, unless you're extremely regimented family with 7 kids, it's a bit challenging, especially having a little baby and then obviously going through pregnancies and things like that. We do have to wing it because there are a lot of disruptions with the dynamics of the different age groups of children, and so it doesn't look anything like a classroom at school. Nothing like, except for the moments that we might have them all around one table, maybe doing something little each in a book or something like that. That's when it might look like a classroom, but otherwise it's quite we're very flexible. We have to be because of our dynamic at the moment,
of course.
So
and what I guess kind of syllabus or because
that we use.
So is the I know that there are parallel communities that actually have tailored homeschool things for parents that love doing it. I think Dana, the whole, it's what's called Crunchy Mum. Is that what the Instagram thing is? Yeah. Would you guys consider yourself part of that, or you're just like, nah, I don't want to be in any labels or groups. I'm not crunchy anything. I'm just Bec and Sam, and we do our thing.
Yeah, more Bec and Sam, we do our thing.
Okay.
We know about these things. We have used a curriculum called Seton Catholic College from America, that we do sort of follow that. But we also use like a bit of everything, mishmash of things.
Yeah.
And then the other part, then we'd probably need to say we do a lot of hands-on, we do a lot of communicating with our children, speaking back and forth language, like spending time hearing their thoughts, getting them to express their thoughts to us.
Yeah.
Try not to be too busy for them, but we obviously are working, we're trying to work from home too. A bit like you're trying to make a bit of a side gig start to happen and you know, change the direction of your career. We're trying to do the same thing. That's really challenging. Sometimes you're just like, I don't have time for you right now, but you know, we'll get back to that later, or we talk about it later. Like sometimes we don't have time for them because we're also working from home, so they have to sort of do a bit of self-guided learning. We also just let them obviously play, ride their bikes, be in the sun, jump on the trampoline. And what we have done as well is our backyard has been turned into a little urban farm. So we
beautiful.
have really like beautiful like garden beds, really tall garden beds that Sam's made with corrugated iron in the backyard. And we've also started doing chickens lately. So we're raising up chickens. So we've got the incubator. So we've got about 100 or more baby chickens that we're going to maybe sell in the future. So we get our kids involved in all that stuff, even down to the selling and listing online. You know, we're like, we're going to, do that soon because they're coming up to be ready to be sold.
Just real world practical skills.
We have rabbits as well. Rabbits we do eat the meat, but it's also like if people do want a pet, we're open to selling them as pets as well. We adopt rabbits sometimes too, because sometimes people say we don't know where to send our rabbits, so we look at if we can bring them into our breeding program or what we can do with them, and things like that. Then what else do we do? We have our dogs and so they're seeing puppies sometimes be born. They've seen our kittens be born. They've seen the chooks getting hatched, and then they come out to feed, and then they plant with us as well. They know, like when they see a tiny seedling, they'll be able to recognize what that is.
Nice.
Like they're like, oh, strawberries, oh, basil, oh, parsley, or whatever comes up. They're, oh, that looks like it could be beetroot, or that And we do. It's been going on for about 2.5 years now that we've been growing things. So we just have random things now popping up all over our backyard, and the animals spread it everywhere as well.
Yeah, it's nice to say to the kids, hey, mum needs a bit of parsley, and they can go and identify it, or smell between Italian parsley and oregano and everything. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do.
Yes.
But a couple of generations ago, our ancestors, my parents and grandparents, weren't living too differently to that. It's more just now in big cities where that's kind of lost in the urban jungle. But to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, and to maybe play the role of the hater, because a lot of people watching would obviously have these questions saying, well, aren't your kids socially awkward? How do they make friends?
That's the question we get asked often.
What are you measuring what they're learning on? If you can't, if they have never been to a traditional school, where are they then? You
where does that leave them?
Where does it leave them? Like, can they still go out and function in the world without having that same indoctrinated, boxed in upbringing that we had at school? Because to be honest, that's a one size fits all. You're not made to
which Sam would say he didn't feel it worked for him growing up in the schooling system in Kuwait. That didn't work for him. He found, like, the first couple of years, he said, I was doing well in school, and then all of a sudden I wasn't getting it, and he jokes and says, maybe I was vaccinated or something happened to my brain, because all of a sudden I didn't understand school, and it just didn't work for me anymore. And I didn't have that myself. And then I even studied teaching, and people say, oh, because you're a teacher, that's why you're homeschooling. But we really, we want to always be the example for our kids. The kids learn more by what they see with us than what we tell them. And so for us, we are very social people. We sell raw milk from home as well. We always have people coming nearly every day of the week. We probably have about 3 or 4 visitors come to our home nearly every day.
Appreciate what you're doing. They really do.
Yeah, and sometimes people stay, and we don't go, oh, we're so busy today, oh, sorry, we can't we were like, they must need to talk. So we let them in. And the kids know that. They're like, we always have our door open for anyone that wants to come in, have a chat or hang out a little bit. Sometimes it is hard, it's challenging, and we do have so many things, like a list of things we've got to complete. But if it doesn't happen that day, we just like, well, it's going to happen tomorrow.
It sounds like it's fun and it's turbulent and it's the right way to kind of take life by what you're doing, because there's no time to watch TV or to get drawn into these boring vices that just distract you. Like, you're really doing like good work. Like, you're making a go of it. You're doing it your way, which is, people just don't have the courage to do it these days. And you said it's hard. Well, yeah, of course it's hard. It's the only way that you can foster change is through a hardship.
Yeah, some mums have 2 children and the kids are stuck to them. Like at church, I see this. Like the kids cry as soon as mum walks away. They won't go to anyone else. But if you see my kids at church, and as I said, I usually take them on my own. They're not with me at all. And this guy gets passed around to everyone. Beautiful. And he's fine. He doesn't cry. Yeah. I mean, I have one child that her personality and nature was mummy, mummy, mummy. And I loved that. I'm like, thank God I got one kid that just like loves me and wants to be with me all the time. But of course it was also really hard. So I can imagine mums that have 2 little toddlers that don't want to leave their side. But my kids are everywhere and anywhere. Other homeschooling families can recognize that they are homeschooled. Okay. But other people don't know how to put their finger on it. All they say is, your kids are so social, or they have a whole conversation with me, and they find it weird that they're speaking to an adult and holding a conversation. So definitely not our children, but I think that comes down to the personality and the character of the parents and the work we put into ourselves to be accountable and talk to each other and talk to others. We try to be connected to people.
I think what the case is with a lot of just mainstream parents, go to school, public school, whatever. So that's the majority of people. I feel like a lot of them can use that as an excuse to detach from their roles. So I say to my wife, the kids, not too big on them going to a Catholic school, because I want them to learn it from us. I don't want them to learn it from the school. I want to have the responsibility
to teach the faith, for example.
I don't always agree with everything that they teach, or I don't agree with it in that certain sense, but I want them to have the complete picture. If that means a bit of Protestantism, that means a bit of Catholicism, that means a bit of Gnosticism. I want them to know all of it, and because it's all important. Even though the Orthodox Church bashed Gnosticism a lot in the past, it still has great value because it taps into more of the spirituality of it. Just finished a really great book on it, actually. It was really good. But having said that, I said the boys need structure, and they're not going to get it from school. School is they're just employees that are there most of the time. My sister's a primary school teacher and she loves her job. But I've had teachers come in here, and a lot of them, when they talk to me about how's work, I got to go and tear the marking. And I said, that's not what you want your teacher to be. You got to be hungry that you're teaching the next generation. Like, being a teacher is a calling, even though my sister would say she doesn't get paid the best, but man, she's got a lot of days off, a lot of time off. It's a good life balance, but she's called to it. She loves her kids.
Yes.
And I feel like that's the thing. Like I said, babe, like, school is not going to teach them structure. It's not going to teach them discipline. They're just there to learn birds, bees. I said reading, writing, arithmetic. The rest is us. But a lot of the parents, I feel like they disassociate. You should be learning that at school. How come school isn't teaching you that? I said, your job is not just school drop off and dinner. There's a lot more to it.
Yes.
And I feel like that's lost on a lot of modern parents now. They put too much faith into the institution, which is kind of devaluing yourself as a parent. Like, that your job is to be their teacher. Because I want, when my kids to come home from school, I want them like, what have you learned today? Adonis or Odysseus? What have you learned? I learned this, this, and this. All right, good. Well, now I'll sit down and I'll tell you exactly why that's wrong.
But, you have to unteach it.
Or at least give them a different perspective.
Different perspective, yeah.
I'm a student of philosophy. I love Stoicism. I love philosophy. And one of the best things, I believe, I think it's Marcus Aurelius, that he said, or Seneca or one of them said, it is a sign of an intelligent mind. It is the sign of an intelligent mind to be able to take an idea and ponder it, but not necessarily accept it, which is very good, because then that shows open-mindedness. And if people thought more in terms of that mindset, you'd have a lot less disagreements. But when kids come from school, you get put into camps. Yes, no, I agree, I don't agree. If you stand out in school, hands up, who watched the State of Origin today? A hand goes up. One kid's hand doesn't go up. everyone looks
you
at
feel
him
like the outsider.
yeah, it's not something that fosters people that are different. It's molding you to be a one size fits all, which I think is why society's going the way it's going. You got a society full of NPCs because none of them have the courage to be who they want to be.
Yeah.
And that's in your dynamic with your kids, if you said, "Oh, you have to work. I'm leaving you with this schoolwork," will you find the older one might then help the younger ones? Like, does the older child take the lead as kind of like, all right, what's the older one's name? Anya. So is Anya? Oh, it's awesome that she's a girl too. That maternal instinct, looking after the younger ones.
She really actually does naturally have that. Yeah.
Does she step into that role? Does she love being all right, boys and girls? It's like, does she step into it like empowerment? Like, I get
even the older son Ruben, he will help with the younger ones, to the point that I'm like, no, you've got to do your stuff. Don't help them too much. Like, I will help the younger ones. I want you to focus on this. But sometimes I want them to also help the younger ones. That's great. Like, it's, of course, you do learn by teaching others, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
It's great for them.
100%.
Yes, that does happen.
I agree.
And the older child is very, very much a leader, and definitely there's a reason why she's the firstborn. She's quite an incredible child, and each of them are so different and amazing, and we are really trying to nurture that and talk about, God's made you all different for a reason, and we don't want you to be like each other necessarily, but we do want them to have our values. We don't want them to go every day to school and have the brainwashing of others, and how kids are so impressionable. They always look at their peers and everything. Well, we think they need a little less of that until they're a little bit older, and they can, make some strong choices on their own without being too influenced by other people. We try to limit screen time. We do feel like where screens and like the technology is wonderful, it's also so detrimental, isn't it? We can see
tool that needs to be harnessed positively.
Yes,
I think.
Like, for my son, he has already spoken to some of the rugby boys and even neighbours, and they talk about and I say son because I feel like boys have more problems with wanting to play games all the time, gaming, because he doesn't go to school and he's not constantly bombarded with the conversation of let's talk about Fortnite, let's talk about Minecraft, let's talk about he is able to listen to our wishes of not having. We have not bought him any Nintendo Switch or PlayStation or anything.
Against his wishes? Has he ever asked for it?
Yes, he has.
Okay.
He has asked for it.
Did he put up a bit of resistance when you said, well, no? Or
we
was he like,
always explain why.
Yeah, okay,
and of
I was going to
course,
say that
as a child,
yes.
he's like, oh, not this again, mummy. Don't tell me this again. But that's what kids do. But he knows why. I know he understands me in his capacity at the moment. Mm-hmm. And I try not to overburden with how I explain it to him. But, we have seen family members that are addicted to gaming. And we can see like the problems there and how bad it is. So sometimes we don't realize how bad something might be until 10 years down the track, and you're like, I can't stop my kid from doing this, or they're not functioning in a normal way, or they don't want to go and get a job, or they don't want to do anything with their life. All they want to do is game, and they think they might be a game creator one day. That's all they're how narrow. That's what gaming is doing to a lot of people, and even like the whole thing with, it looks like how they gambling is in children's games and things like that. So just like to what I mean, like it's.
I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah, actually. Like I mean, there's an ad that comes up on YouTube that sees the mum looking at the son, at the screen, and there's all these coins and things going on the screen in his normal kid's game, but they said gambling is in children's games, and I used to hear the ching 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 like of the gaming, and I'm like, that sounds like pokie machines and all that. And I'm like, what is this conditioning? This is what? There's a battle. There's a huge battle. It's a spiritual battle. Yeah. Good and evil. And we have now realized, COVID, yes, we were already thinking of it before COVID time, but from COVID time, we really realize it's so true, and more people are noticing it now. Oh, you're
not alone in that. Yeah. COVID woke up a lot of people.
Yeah.
This podcaster included.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. So we now realize that nearly everything that is normal to the majority is not good for us. That's what I feel like
which is fine. it's not supposed to. It's
Yeah.
meant to be different for everybody, but that's as you know is not acceptable.
Yeah.
It's supposed to work for you, but when it doesn't, you're immediately the outlier. And it's awesome that you're
yeah,
you're
we just
accepting of it.
we're trying to we question everything that we are doing as parents. We're questioning everything we're doing, not questioning as in not confident, but we're always thinking about, what do the kids need, and do we give them a bit of gaming or not, or do we give them some TV time or not? We're thinking about it all the time, and we always explain to the children at their level why we choose not to do certain things or why we are different, and it's good to be different. We want to be the salt of the earth. We want to be the change in the next generation, and even in this generation, we want to raise up really good people. That's why we're spending a lot of time with you, and we're not sending you to school. In saying that, I think that we could actually, if I could look at hindsight, if we sent our children to school, we probably then would have both been in careers and been quite busy and tired, and maybe not had so much time for them. But we are very much involved in our kids' lives all the time. And I could see that as a teacher, and even when I was in high school, the kids that flourished in school had parents that were very present at home and were very involved with their education, and even just connected to their kids. Like, they were friends with their kids, but they're also good parents, and they weren't so busy just with work all the time. Those children flourished in school. And when I was a teacher, I observed that too. The parents that were really balanced and were connected to their kids, they still flourished at school. And I think our kids would actually, if I could, obviously I don't know, because we've always had them as homeschooling, but I think our kids would still flourish, because Sam is very present as a father. He's always connecting with them, to the point that his mum is shocked, because she's from an older generation. How old's your mum now?
Well, 82, 80 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She never saw like a husband, say, changing a nappy when she was growing up. She never saw a husband even come, like she used to give her husband a glass of water. He didn't even come to the kitchen for a glass of water, type thing.
Even
so
men used to.
She was really shocked when she saw us keep having children. She felt like it's going to be so hard for me. Her heart was worried about me.
Fathers stayed outside the giving birth, during giving birth. Stayed outside the room while the wife's giving birth to the child.
Bloody hell.
Whether
he's there catching.
I chose to.
Oh yeah, I was right
we
there.
had 3 home
with
births, and he's like, the last 3 were home births.
birth from home. Go on. Sorry.
Wow.
No.
Nice.
I'm being the midwife for my last three ones.
Yeah.
We chose to be there. I preferred to do what they were doing, and we were more comfortable. Like my hands are that much on with it. Like we didn't have midwives anymore towards the end.
But it worked the way it was supposed to. You had
beautiful.
such undying faith, and it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to for you guys. Because that's when your intention is pure, everything that follows is equally as pure, if not tenfold.
Yes.
I think that's probably a good place to leave it on a cliffhanger for part 2.
Yeah, sure.
As we're pushing it for time now, but otherwise I could have kept going for ages. But I will definitely leave a part 2 in the works. But there's one thing I wanted to leave you guys with. It's a quote, Matthew 6 verse 21, which says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." What does that piece of scripture mean to you in closing? Considering that your treasure is definitely one that you've dug up out of your own volition, like your heart is where you want it to be. So that's the purest form of treasure that you can get. The best divine form of ecstasy is what you guys are harvesting, because it's your way. Whereas I feel like most treasure that people get from out in the world, I don't like calling them sheep, but for the sake of argument, we'll just call it that. That treasure is very much buried in an amount of dirt, of materialism and vice, and it's not a lasting treasure, is it? Because your real treasure is going to be in heaven.
Yeah, that's what I was to think. Everything was in heaven. My treasure was in heaven. But later on, I learned my treasure also is He. And as we pray, you wish you will be done as it is in heaven, so it's on this earth also. And we are his children, and we are his children. We are so privileged to be his children. So yes, we're not of this earth, not from this earth, we're in it. That God gives us the blessing on this earth as well. So anything we do, everything that we do, it's for him, it's for kingdom, but also it's here also. He created us, like we're of him, or we're of his, like we're his children,
Made
of
in his image.
Yeah. So we just have to, we walk with him, holding our hand. He's like, I'll hold your right hand and walk with you, he says. We live by that. What would you like to
It's funny,
add on?
when you were saying the treasure, as you will on earth as it is in heaven, I think we are really feeling that in our family big time, because we let God be in control of everything. It's quite a big thing to say, I'm going to let you, Lord, give me as many kids as you want, and I'm not scared of it. And I think we should never act out of fear. We've learned from COVID that people acted out of fear. They were like, I'm going to die or whatever. And they rushed, just listened to whatever they were told. And a lot of people regret it now. And I think I talk to mums, that are, in their 60s, they're well beyond, being able to have children anymore. And they say, I wish I had more kids. I wish I had more kids. How many parents tell me that? I made 100 excuses why I couldn't have children. And we can too, because we don't live in a big house. We don't have everything, all our ducks lined up, and, we don't come from, incredible wealth. Although we are living on the generations, before us, they are helping us too. And that's a blessing of family and not
Absolutely.
being in a war-torn country. Like Sam having to move as a refugee from one place to another. The blessing of my descendants are here starting now. But we can just see how God is showing us that his will can be done on earth. We don't have to just wait for heaven. By just listening to him and surrendering truly to him in every aspect, and being willing to listen to maybe another church's teaching on something, not be so closed off and say, oh, this is my Protestant church, and oh, we don't have the saints, we don't have this. Well, why? Where did the church come from? What's the history of the church? Go and look back. Actually, Jesus wants, in the True Life and God messages says, he wants his church to be one. He wants us to have the unity in our hearts. We have to be humble, and we have to have love towards each other and speak to each other. We have to treat each other as brothers and sisters. We should treat anyone on the street as our brother or sister.
That's the rock in which he's
So
gonna
we
build
really
his church
truly
on.
feel like we've got heaven on earth in our home. We see it with our children. I tell my kids, sure, we fight, sure, things happen, arguments happen at home. We're not perfect, but we can turn around and say sorry and say, I didn't do this the right way, and I'm sorry I yelled at you or whatever happened. But I say to them, but you really have it so good here just because we decided to listen to God. You're seeing two parents that love each other. When we hug each other in the kitchen, our kids come running.
They do, don't they?
And they
We
stick their
like
heads
that for
between
us.
us, and we just squeeze them all in. That's their reaction, is seeing the love and the unity between the parents,
by love.
even though we don't go to the same church. We're like, no, we're not going to let this divide us, because that's what Satan wants. He wants division.
Yeah.
Even amongst someone that's not a Christian, we shouldn't be divided as humans.
not.
We've got to love everyone that's around us.
Absolutely.
So we experience that Jesus is the treasure for us, and that's, he's the foremost everything for us, and it's just overflowing from his abundance. That's what we're feeling by living this way. So
He's teaching us as well. Holy Spirit is teaching us still, always something new to learn, to discover, discuss about it.
but we can feel it's limitless. It's just
it is, isn't it? There's
Yes.
never enough books. There's never enough anything. It's always, you got to constantly be thirsty for it, I feel like. And to me, like, for how I'm so self-taught with all of this stuff, and I'm learning a lot just from talking with people on this show. And you can't get enough. It's an insatiable kind of thirst or unquenchable, because you can constantly just fill yourself, and it really is a blessing. I can't describe you know, the feeling of when you're spiritually and nourished to the point where you just want to constantly fill yourself with more and more and more, whether it be more kids, go to church more, or just use those teachings out in the world. I mean, you told me when I reached out to you in that cold call that probably would have taken you by surprise, that you said I was praying for an opportunity like this, and lo and behold, there it was, our paths crossed because it was meant to be. And I'm looking forward to a lifetime more of events like that. But as long as you're constantly practicing what you're preaching, which I know that you guys are, well, then that's what you can look forward to, is more and more treasure, as long as you keep digging with the, you know, with the right tools. But when having said that, it's a beautiful place to leave it. Nick, cut it.